Primary RE is a balance between learning about and learning from religion. Pupils should learn about stories and artifacts, but young minds must also learn from religion and engage with big philosophical and religious questions. In this programme, we see Paul Newbold at Minchinhampton School, a Church of England school in Gloucestershire, using big thinking techniques to help enable Year 1 pupils' deep thinking in an RE context. In the first session, Paul draws on the pupils' own ideas to introduce important vocabulary and uses the techniques of Think, Pair, Share and thinking books to remove the writing barrier to learning, enabling freedom of thought. After lunch, in session 2, Paul opens up their thinking but also reinforces the RE context, and using artwork as a stimulus, asks the class to generate questions relating to God. In session 3, the final session, Paul gathers together all of the questions which have been asked in the day and gets the pupils to reflect on what they consider their biggest question of all.
Now I want to explain a bit about big questions and the answers you get. Look at this chair of mine. What colour is this chair?
Red.
Is that an easy answer?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Red.
What's this chair made of? Charlie?
Plastic. Metal.
Plastic, metal. You had to think a bit about that. That was a little harder, wasn't it, that question? What's the story of this chair from when of how it was made and how it got here? Is that a bigger question? Yeah, it's a bigger question, isn't it? So if I ask you a question, what colour is this chair? It's red. That's like a little question. If I ask you, what's the story of this chair? I have to do some finding out. Have to do some puzzling. Have to do some hard thinking. So we're thinking today about big questions that aren't easy to answer. Okay.
These lessons really are an exciting opportunity, I think, to exercise and demonstrate the value of pupils' thinking as shown in their talking. The theme in the curriculum was rules for living.
What is it inside of us that helps us choose to do the right thing? Phoebe?
It's your heart inside.
Ah, that's one that we can write down. Scribes, please. What is it that helps you choose what's right? It's your heart inside. Now, there's a word for this part of us inside. I don't know whether any of you have come across it before. George?
Common sense.
We do need to use common sense. What is common sense, George?
It's like a ghost inside your brain, and it tells you what's right and.
Very interesting. We're getting closer, aren't we?
I tried to introduce and reinforce all the important vocabulary that they needed without telling them a list of vocabulary to learn at the start. So most of the time it was using words and praising words that came from the group throughout the lesson, and where necessary highlighting phrases or words and writing them up so that they could then begin to extend their thinking.
There are lots of things that happen in life that we do, and when we've done them, maybe we feel bad. What is it inside of us that feels bad when we do something, or feels sad? It's all about the common sense that George was talking about. It's all about the heart that Phoebe was talking about, and it's called conscience. And I want you to think about that word. Let me write it down. Conscience is a word for what goes on inside you. It's a word for your common sense heart. And I think those two together, your common sense heart, is a very good explanation of what the word conscience is. We've all got a conscience.
To actually say to a child, that was a fantastic thought, I'll write that down. Let's put it up on the wall. Let's celebrate this thought or this question. It really gives them a good feeling inside.
So, now, talking partners sit face to face, talk about the same thing, and listen carefully to each other.
After introducing important vocabulary, Paul slows down the pupils' thinking and gives them the opportunity to develop the ideas raised, firstly in pairs and then on their own in thinking books.
And I don't know how Jesus gets you here. I think you think as well. Not now.
Now, the think, pair, share technique, I think, is very important to get them talking, to simply ask a question and then get the children to put their hands up and answer. Doesn't give them opportunity to develop their thoughts, but to give them time where they specifically think about it first, then they talk about it with their partner, enables them to strengthen those ideas and develop them.
Everyone in heaven is a ghost because when they're dead, they're a ghost.
Can you think of another word for ghost? Isaac?
Soul.
Ooh, soul. Another word for it, Hannah?
Spirit.
Ah. In your thinking books, think about how you, on your own, understand what's right. Think about your conscience. Think about your common sense heart.
Thinking books is an opportunity for them to develop their thinking privately. It slows down their thinking, gives them a chance to develop their ideas, to articulate and experiment with their thoughts. With adults moving around, they can support and scribe their thoughts for them.
What does he chose to do those three?
Okay, and what are you doing together in your kitchen?
Close to lunchtime now.
After lunch in session 2, using art as a stimulus, Paul now encourages the children to produce a body of questions relating to God.
But we're going to open it up much bigger than that. We're going to think about God. Pretty big, isn't he, God? You can't get much bigger than God. Okay. And I want you, just close your eyes now and think about what is God like? What is God like? What does he look like? What does he do? Is he a person? Is he a bit different from that? Open your eyes again. You're going to do pictures of God. But you need to be asking questions as you do it. So I want you to think about puzzling questions to do with God, and we're still trying to get the biggest question of all. What? What is God like? Why? Why does God do this or that? How? Can you give me an example of a how question to do with God?
How does he make the world?
How does he make the world? Lots of these. We want lots of these questions coming up. Abby?
Where is God?
Where is God? Massive question. Big, big question.
Where does he come from?
Where does he come from? Right, go quietly into your talking groups and find somewhere to sit together at a table. I've put the big words up here. Here they are. What, why, when, where, how, and who. Okay, now you don't have to answer all those questions, but it will be lovely, like we did this morning, to get plenty of your questions and ideas down in these bubbles while you're working.
Why is God an angel? Every picture of God in the church, it always has wings.
First one's a really big question, isn't it?
I think the most important technique is that of not asking the children to write. Too often we ask them to write or record when really their thoughts are only beginning to form.
Okay. What about you then, Isaac? Have you come up with any questions yet?
3 adults in a Key Stage 1 classroom is not so unusual these days. Work like this needs the right kind of support, and so it's important to provide adults who can harness the learning that's going on.
But I've got in front of me your bubbles and lots of ideas and quite a few questions. Jordan asked the question, where is God?
What I wanted to do today was to get them thinking about things that they could not see, they could not feel, and start thinking about themselves and themselves in relation to the person of God and whatever that meant for them.
How does God look at us to watch us? How does God look at us?
Gathering up all of the questions of the day, Paul now, in the final session, asks the pupils to reflect on what they consider is their biggest question.
All those questions have magically appeared on the whiteboard, just like that. These are the where questions. This is the, we only had one who question, but that's...
The lessons which follow will bring in the Christian context. It's very important that that happens after they've had the opportunity to think through some of these bigger issues.
We're still trying to work out the biggest question of all, and we're going to choose. Now that table's got an A on it, that table's got a B on it, that table's got a C on it. I want you to go and stand by A or B or C, all of you. If you think it's the biggest question, how does God look at us to watch us? How does God get down to earth? How did God get up into heaven? Rest, isn't it? Which is 8, which is 19, I think. Right. No, it doesn't mean you've won. It's not a competition. It just means that more of you, they might be actually think that that is the biggest question because there's a lot of thinking to it. Now come and sit down, we'll look at another one. Where is God might be different from where does God live. Off you go when you've made your mind up. Don't think about other children.
The most important objective in today's lesson was to bring out the opportunity for children to talk and think for themselves, to get beneath the surface of the issues involved. And in particular to work on attainment target 2 in RE, which is learning from religion, not just learning content, but actually being able to respond to it and think for themselves.
We've been ranking them, putting them in order of what we think is the biggest question. You've decided, what is it? Biggest question of all is, why is God so special? Who can begin to start us off with some thoughts?
Because he's Jesus' dad.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's in the Bible.
Uh-huh.
Because he was alive before every single person. And God is special if he is invisible and glows up and stands on water.
Lovely collection of thoughts there, Leah. Thank you. Well, that's something to take home with us, isn't it? And think about. That's your homework for next week, to find out why God is so special.